The clock on the dashboard showed 2:17 a.m. when Detective Ryan Torres pulled his beat-up Honda into the Sunset gas station. The neon lights flickered above, casting weird shadows across the empty parking lot. Ryan rubbed his tired eyes and looked at himself in the rearview mirror. 3 weeks of growing out his beard and wearing old work clothes had changed his appearance completely. Nobody would recognize him as a cop right now, which was exactly what he needed. For the past month, Ryan had been working undercover to catch a drug ring that was moving products through the city's east side. Tonight was supposed to be another routine surveillance shift, watching for suspicious activity around the gas stations where dealers often met their buyers. He needed coffee and gas, nothing more. As Ryan stepped out of his car, he heard something that made him stop. Someone was crying. Not just regular crying, but the kind of deep, heartbroken sobs that made your chest hurt just listening to them. The sound was coming from near the air pump on the side of the building. Ryan's first instinct was to mind his own business. He was undercover, and getting involved in random situations could blow his cover. But as he walked toward the store, he caught sight of who was making those sounds, and his feet stopped moving. A young woman sat on the curb next to the air pump, her head buried in her hands. She looked to be in her early 20s, and even from a distance, Ryan could see she was pregnant. Her long dark hair fell around her shoulders, and she was wearing what looked like expensive clothes, though they were dirty and wrinkled like she had been sleeping in them. Ryan stood there for a moment, torn between his job and his conscience. His training told him to stay focused on his mission, but his heart told him something different. He had been raised by a single mother who struggled every day to make ends meet. The sight of a pregnant woman crying alone at 2 a.m. brought back memories he tried to keep buried. He was about to approach her when the rumble of car engines filled the air. 3 black SUVs pulled into the parking lot, their headlights sweeping across the station like searchlights. Ryan's cop instincts immediately kicked in. Something about this felt wrong. Very wrong. The vehicles parked in a triangle formation around the gas pumps, blocking most of the exits. Men in dark suits got out of each car, and Ryan counted at least 6 of them. They moved with purpose, scanning the area like they were looking for something. Or someone. The pregnant woman's crying stopped abruptly. Ryan saw her lift her head and look toward the cars, and even from 50 feet away, he could see the fear in her eyes. She quickly tried to get up, but her pregnant belly made it difficult, and she stumbled slightly. One of the men pointed in her direction and said something to the others. They started walking toward her, and Ryan noticed that at least 2 of them had their hands inside their jackets, probably reaching for weapons. This was bad. Really bad. Ryan's mind raced through his options. He could call for backup, but they were at least 10 minutes away, and this situation looked like it might explode in the next 30 seconds. He could try to arrest these men himself, but he was outnumbered 6-1, and pulling out his badge would blow his cover completely. That would end the drug investigation he had been working on for months, but looking at the pregnant woman's terrified face made his decision easy. Ryan quickly walked over to his car and grabbed a wrench from his toolbox in the trunk. Then he hurried toward the woman, making sure to look casual but moving fast enough to reach her before the men in suits did. "Hey there," Ryan called out as he approached the woman, speaking loudly enough for the approaching men to hear. "Sorry I'm late, honey. Had trouble finding this place in the dark?" The woman looked up at him with confusion and fear in her eyes. She was even younger than he had thought, maybe 22 or 23, with tear-stained cheeks and the kind of natural beauty that would turn heads anywhere. But right now she looked absolutely terrified. Ryan knelt down next to her and spoke quietly. "Play along with me. Those men don't look friendly and you need help." For a split second she just stared at him. Then, as if she suddenly understood what was happening, she nodded slightly. "There you are," she said, her voice shaky but trying to sound normal. I was starting to worry. The men in suits had stopped about 20 feet away, clearly watching this new development. Ryan helped the woman to her feet, making sure to keep his body between her and the men. "Car trouble?" Ryan asked loudly, holding up the wrench. "Let me take a look at that engine again." He led her toward his Honda, keeping his movements casual while his eyes tracked the suited men. They were talking among themselves now, and Ryan caught bits of their conversation. "That's not him," one said. "Are you sure it's her?" Another asked. "Could be anyone," a third voice added. "Lots of pregnant girls around." Ryan opened the passenger door of his car and helped the woman inside. As he walked around to the driver's side, he made eye contact with the leader of the group, a tall man with graying hair and cold eyes. Everything okay? Ryan asked, trying to sound like a regular guy who was slightly annoyed at being watched. Just looking for someone, the man replied. Thought we recognized your friend there. Nah, that's just my girl, Ryan said, getting into the car. We're just heading home from her sister's place. The man studied them for another moment, then nodded to his team. All right, let's go. This isn't the right place. The men returned to their vehicles, but Ryan noticed they didn't leave immediately. They sat in their cars, engines running, watching. We need to get out of here, Ryan whispered to the woman next to him. But we have to make it look normal. What's your name? Sophia, she whispered back, her hands shaking as she fastened her seatbelt. Okay, Sophia, I'm Mike, Ryan said, using the fake name from his undercover identity. I'm going to start the car and drive away slowly. Those men are still watching us. He started the engine and pulled away from the gas station at a normal speed, checking his mirrors constantly. The three SUVs stayed put for about a minute, then began following at a distance. They're behind us, Sophia said, looking back. I know. Don't worry, I've got this, Ryan replied, though his heart was pounding. He had no idea who these men were or what they wanted with Sophia, but he was committed now. There was no turning back. As they drove through the empty streets, Ryan stole glances at the woman beside him. Her clothes were definitely expensive, the kind of designer stuff that cost more than he made in a month. Her watch looked real, not some knockoff from a street vendor. But her shoes were scuffed, her hair was messy, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Who were those men? Ryan asked as he took a series of turns to lose their tail. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, she finally said, but Ryan could tell she was lying. The truth was, neither of them was being completely honest. Ryan couldn't tell her he was a cop without blowing his cover, and Sophia clearly had secrets of her own. But as they drove through the night, both of them running from something, neither realized that this chance encounter would change everything. After driving around for 30 minutes to make sure they weren't being followed, Ryan finally pulled into the parking lot of his apartment complex. It wasn't much to look at. A 3-story brick building that had seen better days with paint peeling off the walls and a parking lot full of potholes. But it was home, and more importantly, it was safe. Sophia had been quiet during most of the drive, occasionally looking out the back window to check if those black SUVs were still following them. When Ryan parked the car, she let out a long breath she seemed to have been holding forever. Thank you, she said softly. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up. Ryan turned off the engine and looked at her. In the dim light from the parking lot, he could see how exhausted she was. Her eyes were red from crying, and she kept one hand protectively over her pregnant belly. Don't mention it, he said. But we should get inside, just in case. Ryan's apartment was on the 2nd floor, and he felt a little embarrassed as he unlocked the door. The place was small, just a living room, kitchen, 1 bedroom, and a bathroom. The furniture was old and mismatched, stuff he had picked up from thrift stores and garage sales. It was all part of his cover story as a struggling mechanic, but it also happened to be all he could afford on a detective's salary. It's not much, Ryan said as he flipped on the lights. But you can crash on the couch tonight. We'll figure out something better tomorrow. Sophia stepped inside and looked around. She seemed surprised by how clean everything was despite the old furniture. Ryan kept the place neat, old habits from his police training. This is perfect, Sophia said, and she sounded like she really meant it. I haven't had a safe place to sleep in 3 days. That comment hit Ryan hard. 3 days? What had happened to put a pregnant woman on the streets for 3 days? He wanted to ask, but something told him to give her space. She would talk when she was ready. Are you hungry? Ryan asked. I don't have much, but I can make some eggs and toast. Sophia's eyes lit up. That sounds amazing. I haven't eaten a real meal since... She stopped herself like she was about to say too much. While Ryan cooked, Sophia sat at his small kitchen table. He noticed she was looking around the apartment with an odd expression, like she was studying everything. When she thought he wasn't looking, she examined his coffee maker, his microwave, even the way he had organized his books on the shelf. You keep everything really organized, she observed. Old habit, Ryan replied, flipping the eggs. My mom always said a messy home means a messy mind. Smart woman. What does she think about your... Sophia gestured around the apartment. Current situation. Ryan's hand tightened on the spatula. His mother had died 5 years ago, never knowing he had become a police officer. In his cover story, though, he was supposed to be a mechanic who had fallen on hard times. She passed away a few years back, he said simply. She always wanted me to go to college, get a good job. Guess I didn't quite live up to her expectations. Sophia was quiet for a moment. I think she would be proud of you anyway. You helped a stranger tonight. That says a lot about who you are. After they ate, Ryan set up the couch with sheets and a pillow. Sophia thanked him again, and he headed to his bedroom. But sleep didn't come easily. He kept thinking about those men at the gas station and wondering what Sophia was really running from. The next morning, Ryan woke up to the smell of coffee and something that smelled like pancakes. He stumbled into the kitchen to find Sophia standing at his stove cooking breakfast. She had somehow found ingredients he didn't even know he had, and was making what looked like a gourmet meal. "Morning," she said with a smile. "Hope you don't mind. I found some flour and eggs in your cupboard. Thought I'd return the favor." Ryan was impressed. The pancakes were perfect, light and fluffy, and she had even managed to make the coffee taste better than usual. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" he asked. Sophia hesitated. "My grandmother taught me. She always said good food was the best way to show someone you cared about them." After breakfast, Ryan had to leave for work. His cover job was at Tony's auto shop on the other side of town, and he needed to maintain appearances. He also had to check in with his handler about the previous night's events. "I'll be back around 6, he told Sophia. "There's food in the fridge, and the TV remote is on the coffee table. Try to stay inside today, okay?" Sophia nodded. "I will. And Mike? Thank you again. For everything." When Ryan returned that evening, he was surprised to find Sophia sitting at his kitchen table with his old laptop open in front of her. The thing had been broken for months. It wouldn't even turn on. "How did you get that working?" he asked. Sophia looked up, slightly embarrassed. "Oh, I hope you don't mind. I was bored and I noticed it sitting in the corner. The power cord was frayed, so I fixed it. Then I saw the hard drive was corrupted, so I restored it from a backup partition." Ryan stared at her. "You did what now?" "It's not a big deal," Sophia said quickly. "I'm just good with computers." "Always have been." Ryan sat down next to her. On the screen was his laptop's desktop working perfectly. He had been planning to throw the thing away. "Sophia, I took that to a computer repair shop 3 months ago. They said it would cost more to fix than it was worth." She shrugged. "Most repair shops just want to sell you new parts. This just needed someone who understood how the software and hardware worked together." Over the next few days, a routine developed. Ryan would leave for work in the morning and Sophia would be there when he got home, always having done something that surprised him. She organized his bookshelf by author and subject. She fixed his leaky faucet using only tools she found under his sink. She even managed to get his old radio working again. But it was the way she talked that really caught Ryan's attention. Sometimes when she was explaining how she had fixed something, she would use words that seemed way too advanced for someone who was supposedly down on their luck. She talked about optimizing systems and streamlining processes like these were everyday concepts. One evening, while they were watching TV, a news story came on about a local tech company. "Those idiots," Sophia muttered, watching the screen. "They're making the same mistake everyone makes. They're trying to expand too fast without building proper infrastructure. Their user base is going to crash their servers within 6 months. Ryan looked at her curiously. "How do you know all that?" Sophia seemed to realize she had said too much. I read a lot of business articles online. When you don't have much else to do, you learn things." But Ryan was starting to suspect there was more to Sophia's story than she was letting on. The way she understood technology, the confidence in her voice when she talked about business, even the way she carried herself. It all suggested someone who was used to being in control, used to making decisions. One night, as they sat on the couch talking, Sophia suddenly grabbed his hand. "Mike," she said seriously, "I need you to know that those men from the gas station, they might come looking for me again. If they do, I don't want you to get hurt because of me." "What did you do, Sophia?" Ryan asked gently. She was quiet for a long moment. "I saw something I wasn't supposed to see, and now some very dangerous people want to make sure I never tell anyone about it." Ryan felt his protective instincts kick in again. Whatever Sophia was hiding, whatever trouble she was in, he was determined to help her through it, even if it meant risking his own cover and his investigation. What he didn't know was that Sophia was struggling with the same feelings about him. She had noticed things too. The way he moved like someone trained in combat. How he always seemed to be watching their surroundings. The fact that his mechanic hands were too clean and soft for someone who worked with car engines all day. Both of them were living lies. But both of them were also falling for the person they thought the other one was. 2 weeks had passed since that night at the gas station, and Ryan found himself living a life he never expected. Every morning he would wake up to the smell of coffee and find Sophia in the kitchen, usually reading something on his laptop while making breakfast. Every evening he would come home to find small improvements around the apartment and Sophia waiting with a warm smile. But the more time they spent together, the more questions Ryan had about her. One morning, he overheard her talking quietly on her phone in what sounded like a very serious business conversation. "No, the quarterly projections are wrong," she was saying. "You need to factor in the market volatility from last month. And tell the board I'll review the merger proposal as soon as I can." When Sophia noticed Ryan listening, she quickly ended the call and smiled at him like nothing had happened. "Just helping an old friend with some paperwork," she explained. Ryan nodded, but something didn't add up. What kind of paperwork involved quarterly projections and merger proposals? And who was Sophia really helping? Meanwhile, Sophia was having her own doubts about Ryan. The man claimed to be a mechanic, but his hands were too soft, and she had never seen him come home with oil stains or dirt under his fingernails. More importantly, he left at strange hours and sometimes came back looking exhausted, like he had been doing something much more demanding than fixing cars. One night, Sophia couldn't sleep, so she got up to get a glass of water. As she walked past Ryan's bedroom, she heard him talking on the phone. "The drop is happening tomorrow night at the warehouse on 5th Street, Ryan was saying quietly. "I'll be there, but we need backup ready." "These guys are dangerous." Sophia froze outside his door. "Drop, backup, dangerous guys? What kind of mechanic talked like that?" When Ryan came out of his room the next morning, Sophia was already making coffee, acting like she hadn't heard anything. But her mind was racing. Was Ryan involved in something illegal? Was that why he had been so willing to help her that night at the gas station? The thought scared her more than she wanted to admit. Over the past 2 weeks, she had started to care about Ryan in a way that surprised her. He was kind, protective, and made her feel safe for the first time in months. But if he was mixed up in criminal activities, what did that mean for her? Ryan, on his part, was dealing with similar worries. His undercover investigation was getting more complicated every day. The drug ring he was tracking had connections to several local businesses, and his captain was pushing him to make arrests soon. But every time he thought about leaving Sophia alone in his apartment while he went out on dangerous surveillance missions, his chest tightened with worry. What made everything worse was that Ryan was starting to have feelings for Sophia that went way beyond just wanting to protect her. She was smart, funny, and had a way of making even his tiny apartment feel like home. But he was lying to her about who he really was, and she was clearly lying to him too. One afternoon, while Ryan was at work, Sophia was using his laptop when she accidentally opened a folder of photos. Most of them were normal pictures, but one caught her attention. It showed Ryan in a police uniform, standing with a group of other officers at what looked like a graduation ceremony. Sophia stared at the screen for a long time. Ryan was a police officer. That explained the strange hours, the phone conversations, the way he always seemed to be watching their surroundings. But why was he pretending to be a mechanic? And what did that mean for her situation? She quickly closed the folder and tried to act normal when Ryan came home that evening. But the knowledge sat heavy in her chest. She wanted to trust him. But how could she when he was lying about something so fundamental? 3 days later, everything changed. Sophia was cleaning the apartment when she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her lower abdomen. At first, she thought it was just the baby moving. But then the pain came again, stronger this time. "Oh no," she whispered, sitting down on the couch and placing her hands on her belly. "Please be okay, little one." The pain came again, and this time Sophia cried out. Something was wrong. She tried calling Ryan, but his phone went straight to voicemail. He was probably in the middle of some undercover operation and couldn't answer. Sophia looked at the time. It was 3 p.m. and Ryan wouldn't be home for at least 3 hours. She couldn't wait that long. With shaking hands, she called a taxi and grabbed her purse. The ride to St. Mary's Hospital felt like forever, with Sophia trying to stay calm while sharp pains shot through her body every few minutes. When the taxi pulled up to the emergency room, Sophia practically stumbled through the doors. "Please help me," she said to the nurse at the front desk. "I'm pregnant and something's wrong." The nurse took one look at Sophia's pale face and immediately called for a wheelchair. As they wheeled her toward the examination rooms, Sophia fumbled in her purse for her identification. "What's your name, honey?" the nurse asked kindly. "Sophia Delacroix," Sophia replied, handing over her driver's license. The nurse glanced at the ID and her expression immediately changed. She looked at Sophia with wide eyes, then quickly looked at the ID again. "Ms. Delacroix," she said, her voice suddenly much more formal. "I'll get Dr. Martinez right away. He's our best doctor." Within minutes, Sophia found herself in a private room with 3 doctors and 2 nurses all fussing over her. They were treating her like she was the most important patient in the hospital, and Sophia realized they must have recognized her name. "The ultrasound shows everything is fine," Dr. Martinez assured her an hour later. "The baby's heartbeat is strong and you're not having contractions. It was probably just round ligament pain, which is very common in the second trimester, but we want to keep you for observation for a few hours just to be safe." Sophia nodded, relief flooding through her. The baby was okay. That was all that mattered. "Is there someone we can call for you?" the nurse asked. "Family member? The baby's father?" Sophia thought about Ryan. She wanted him there more than anything, but how could she explain why the hospital staff was treating her like royalty? How could she tell him who she really was? "No," she said softly. "There's no one to call." But that wasn't entirely true. Sophia used the phone in her hospital room to make several business calls, speaking quietly so the nurses wouldn't overhear. She had board meetings to reschedule and contracts to review. Being in the hospital didn't stop her responsibilities as the CEO of one of the city's largest technology companies. When Ryan came home that evening and found the apartment empty, panic set in immediately. Sophia's purse was gone, but her phone was sitting on the kitchen counter. There were no signs of a struggle, but that didn't make him feel any better. He called hospitals, checked with neighbors, and even drove back to the gas station where they had first met, hoping to find some clue about where she had gone. Finally, around 9 p.m., his phone rang. "Mike?" Sophia's voice sounded tired but okay. "Sophia, where are you?" "I was worried sick. I'm at St. Mary's Hospital. I had some pain earlier, and I thought something might be wrong with the baby, but everything's fine now." Ryan was already grabbing his keys. "I'll be right there." When Ryan arrived at the hospital, he was surprised by how the staff treated Sophia. Nurses kept stopping by her room to check on her, and he overheard one doctor telling another that they needed to make sure Ms. Delacroix receives the best possible care. Who was Ms. Delacroix? And why did that name sound familiar to Ryan as he sat next to Sophia's hospital bed, holding her hand while she slept? Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. They had been living in a bubble for 2 weeks, both pretending to be people they weren't. But reality was starting to creep in, and Ryan had the sinking feeling that when the truth finally came out, it would change everything between them. The next morning, Ryan woke up early and decided to make Sophia breakfast before heading to work. She was still sleeping peacefully on the couch, one hand resting protectively over her belly. The hospital visit had scared both of them, but thankfully everything was fine with the baby. As Ryan quietly moved around the kitchen, his phone buzzed with a text from his captain. "New development in the case. Need to see you ASAP," Ryan sighed. For the past 3 weeks, his undercover investigation had taken a back seat to caring for Sophia, but he knew his captain was getting impatient. The drug ring they were tracking had been quiet lately, which either meant they were being more careful or planning something big. He left a note for Sophia explaining he had to work late and might not be home until after midnight. What he didn't tell her was that he was meeting with his police team to plan a major operation that could finally bring down the criminal organization he'd been investigating for months. At the police station, Detective Ryan Torres sat in conference room B, surrounded by case files and photos. His captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez, spread several documents across the table. "We've got a break in the case," Rodriguez announced. "Remember that financial trail we've been following? It leads directly to Nexus Technologies, one of the biggest tech companies in the city." Ryan looked at the company logo on the folder. Something about it seemed familiar, but he couldn't place where he'd seen it before. Turns out someone inside the company has been stealing millions of dollars and using it to fund the drug operations we've been tracking. Rodriguez continued. The CEO has been trying to expose the corruption, but she's been getting death threats. Word is she's gone into hiding. Rodriguez pulled out a photograph and slid it across the table to Ryan. This is Sophia Delacroix, the CEO of Nexus Technologies. She's been missing for 3 weeks. Her security team thinks the people she was trying to expose finally made their move. Ryan's blood turned to ice. Staring back at him from the photograph was Sophia. His Sophia. The pregnant woman he had been protecting. The woman he was falling in love with was actually one of the most successful business people in the city. Ryan, you look like you've seen a ghost, Rodriguez said. Ryan stared at the photo, his mind racing. Captain, I think I know where she is. Meanwhile, across town, Sophia was having her own moment of truth. She had borrowed Ryan's laptop to handle some urgent business matters when she accidentally clicked on the wrong folder. Instead of opening her encrypted files, she found herself looking at Ryan's police documents. There were surveillance photos, case notes, and reports all bearing the same name at the top. Detective Ryan Torres. Undercover Division. Sophia sat back in shock. Ryan wasn't a mechanic at all. He was a police detective working undercover. But if that was true, then what was he investigating? And why had he been so willing to help her that night at the gas station? She scrolled through more files and found the answer. Ryan was investigating a criminal organization that had connections to her own company. Someone inside Nexus Technologies was stealing money and using it for illegal activities. Someone Sophia had been trying to expose for months before she was forced to go into hiding. Oh my God, Sophia whispered. We're working on the same case. Before she could process this information fully, Sophia heard car doors slamming outside. She looked out the window and felt her heart stop. 3 black SUVs were parked in the apartment complex parking lot. The same vehicles from the gas station 3 weeks ago. They had found her. Sophia quickly closed the laptop and grabbed her phone. She tried calling Ryan, but it went straight to voicemail. He was probably in some important police meeting, but she needed him now more than ever. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside, followed by voices. She's in apartment 2B, someone said. The tech guys tracked her internet activity to this location. Sophia's mind raced. There was no back exit from the apartment, and she couldn't exactly run down the stairs in her condition. She was trapped. The front door exploded inward with a tremendous crash. 3 men in dark suits entered the apartment, led by the same tall man with graying hair from the gas station. Hello, Ms. Delacroix, the man said with a cold smile. You've caused us quite a bit of trouble. Sophia backed toward the kitchen, trying to put distance between herself and the intruders. I don't know what you want. Oh, I think you do, the man replied. You've been digging around in company finances, asking questions, making trouble for our operation. Mr. Hendricks thought you might be reasonable, but you just couldn't leave well enough alone. Hendricks. Sophia's blood boiled at the mention of her business partner's name. David Hendricks, the man she had trusted to help build Nexus Technologies from the ground up. The man who had been stealing from their own company and using the money to fund criminal activities. David's behind this? Sophia asked, though she already knew the answer. Mr. Hendricks has been very generous to our organization, the man confirmed. But your little investigation was threatening to expose everything. So he asked us to solve the problem. One of the other men stepped forward. Should have taken the hint when we burned down your house. Should have left town when we told you to. Now it's too late. Sophia's hand instinctively moved to her belly. I'm pregnant. Whatever problem you have with me, it has nothing to do with my baby. That's not our concern, the leader said coldly. Just then, Sophia heard the sound of footsteps running up the stairs outside. Multiple sets of footsteps moving fast. The front door, which was already hanging off its hinges, was kicked open completely. Ryan burst through, followed by 4 other police officers, all with their weapons drawn. Police! Everyone on the ground now, Ryan shouted. For a split second. Nobody moved. Then chaos erupted. The 3 criminals reached for their weapons, but they were outnumbered and caught off guard. 2 of them surrendered immediately, but their leader grabbed Sophia and pulled her in front of him as a human shield. Back off, the man yelled, pressing a gun to Sophia's head. I'll kill her and the baby. Ryan felt his heart stop. For 3 weeks, he had been protecting Sophia without knowing who she really was. Now, seeing her in danger, all he could think about was keeping her safe. Let her go, Ryan said, lowering his weapon slightly. This is between you and the police. She's just an innocent person caught in the middle. The man laughed bitterly. Innocent? She's the reason our entire operation is falling apart. Do you have any idea how much money she's cost us? You're David Hendrix's men, Sophia said suddenly, her voice stronger than anyone expected. You're the ones who've been laundering money through my company's accounts. Ryan looked at Sophia with new understanding. She wasn't just a victim in this situation. She was the key to solving his entire case. Ms. Delacroix, Ryan said carefully, are you saying you have evidence of financial crimes involving your company? I have everything, Sophia replied, staring directly at Ryan. Bank records, transaction logs, communication between David and his criminal contacts. I've been gathering evidence for months. The man holding Sophia pressed the gun harder against her head. And that's why you need to disappear. That's not going to happen, Ryan said firmly. You're outnumbered, surrounded, and there's nowhere to run. Let her go and maybe we can work something out. I don't think so, Detective Torres, the man sneered. Ryan blinked in surprise. How do you know my name? Sophia turned her head slightly to look at Ryan, despite the gun at her temple. Because I know who you are too. I saw your police files on the laptop, Ryan. For a moment, the apartment was completely silent except for the sound of everyone breathing heavily. You two know each other? One of Ryan's fellow officers asked, confused. It's complicated, Ryan and Sophia said at exactly the same time. The criminal holding Sophia looked back and forth between them, clearly realizing that his situation had just become much more complicated. Well, isn't this interesting, he said with a nasty grin. The CEO and the cop. I bet there's quite a story here. Ryan met Sophia's eyes across the room. In that moment, with all their secrets finally exposed, they both realized that everything was about to change. The lies were over. The truth was out, and they would either solve this case together, or they might not survive to tell anyone what they had discovered. The standoff in Ryan's apartment felt like it lasted forever, but it was probably only 30 seconds. Ryan kept his eyes locked on Sophia's, trying to send her a silent message that everything would be okay. But with a gun pressed against her head and 3 dangerous criminals in the room, he wasn't sure how this was going to end. Here's what's going to happen, the man holding Sophia announced. My associates and I are going to walk out of here with Ms. Delacroix. If anyone tries to follow us, she dies. If anyone calls for backup, she dies. If I even think someone is tracking us, she dies. That's not happening, Ryan said firmly. You're outnumbered. There are officers surrounding the building. Your best option is to surrender now. The criminal laughed coldly. You think I care about my best option? Mr. Hendrix paid us very well to make this problem disappear. Dead or alive, she's coming with us. Sophia had been quietly thinking while the men argued. She knew something they didn't. She had been preparing for this moment for weeks. Before going into hiding, she had copied all the evidence of David Hendrix's crimes onto multiple drives and sent copies to her lawyer with instructions to release everything if something happened to her. You're making a mistake, Sophia said calmly. Even if you take me, it won't solve your problem. What do you mean? The man demanded. I already sent all the evidence to the FBI, Sophia lied smoothly. Bank records, transaction logs, recordings of David admitting to the money laundering. If I don't check in with my lawyer every day, everything goes public automatically. Ryan caught on immediately. She's right. Killing her won't stop the investigation. It'll just make things worse for everyone involved. For the first time, doubt flickered across the criminal's face. His 2 associates looked at each other nervously. She's bluffing, one of them said, but his voice wasn't confident. Are you willing to bet your life on that? Ryan asked. Because that's what you're doing. The FBI doesn't mess around with cop killers and people who hurt pregnant women. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then Sophia suddenly gasped and doubled over in pain. Oh no, she whispered, her free hand going to her belly. Not now, please not now. What's wrong? Ryan asked urgently. The baby, Sophia said through gritted teeth. Something's happening. The man holding her looked panicked. What do you mean something's happening? Another wave of pain hit Sophia, stronger this time. She cried out and would have fallen if the criminal wasn't still holding her up. She's going into labor, Ryan realized with horror. You need to let her go right now. She needs medical attention. This is not part of the plan, one of the other criminals said nervously. We didn't sign up for delivering babies. The leader looked around the room wildly. His simple plan to kidnap Sophia had turned into a nightmare. He was holding a pregnant woman who was going into labor, surrounded by police officers with no clear way out. Maybe we should just surrender, his partner suggested. This has gone too far. Shut up, the leader snapped. But Ryan could see the panic in his eyes. Sophia had another contraction, this one so strong she screamed. In that moment of distraction, Ryan saw his chance. He dove forward, tackling the man holding Sophia and knocking the gun from his hand. The other officers immediately moved in, and within seconds all three criminals were on the ground in handcuffs. Sophia! Ryan knelt beside her as she sat on the floor, breathing heavily. How bad is the pain? Pretty bad, she admitted. I think the baby's really coming this time. Officer Martinez, call an ambulance, Ryan ordered. Then he took Sophia's hand. Just breathe, okay? Help is on the way. Ryan, Sophia said between contractions. I'm sorry I lied to you about who I was. I'm sorry too, Ryan replied. I should have told you I was a police officer. So we're both liars, Sophia said with a weak smile. Yeah, but we're liars who care about each other. The ambulance arrived within minutes, but it was clear they weren't going to make it to the hospital in time. Sophia's labor was progressing too quickly. Sir, I need you to help me, the paramedic told Ryan. This baby isn't waiting for anyone. Ryan had never been so scared in his life, but he held Sophia's hand and helped her through the most intense 30 minutes of both their lives. When their daughter finally arrived, crying loudly and perfectly healthy, Ryan felt his heart explode with emotions he didn't even know he had. She's beautiful, Sophia whispered, tears streaming down her face as she held their baby. She is, Ryan agreed, though he was looking at Sophia when he said it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Sophia's evidence helped the FBI arrest David Hendricks and shut down the entire money laundering operation. The criminals who had threatened her were sentenced to long prison terms. Ryan's undercover investigation was officially closed with commendations for everyone involved. But the most important change wasn't professional, it was personal. I have a confession, Sophia said one evening as they sat in Sophia's real home, a beautiful house across town that Ryan was still getting used to. Baby Isabella was sleeping peacefully in her crib nearby. Another one? Ryan asked with a grin. I thought we were done with secrets. This one's different, Sophia said seriously. I knew you were a police officer before that day at the apartment. Ryan raised his eyebrows. How long did you know? About a week. I saw your graduation photo, remember? But I also did some research. Detective Ryan Torres graduated top of his class, commendations for bravery, works undercover to catch dangerous criminals. And you didn't say anything? Sophia smiled. I was falling in love with you. I didn't want to ruin what we had, even if it was built on lies. Ryan laughed. So let me get this straight. You're a millionaire CEO. I'm an undercover cop. We met while you were running from criminals connected to my case. We both lied about who we were, and we still managed to fall in love and have a baby together? When you put it like that, it sounds pretty crazy. It is crazy, Ryan agreed, pulling her closer. But I wouldn't change any of it. Not even the part where I'm technically your boss now? Sophia asked with a mischievous smile. Ryan looked confused. What do you mean? Well, I was thinking Nexus Technologies could use a good head of security. Someone with police experience, someone I trust completely. The pay would be considerably more than what the city offers. Sophia Delacroix, are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a future, she said softly. If you want it. Ryan looked around the nursery they had set up together, at the woman he loved holding their daughter, at the life they had built from a chance encounter at a gas station. 6 months ago, he had been a lonely cop working dangerous cases and going home to an empty apartment. Now he had everything he never knew he wanted. I want it, he said, kissing Sophia gently. I want all of it. Baby Isabella chose that moment to wake up crying for attention. As Sophia got up to feed her, Ryan marveled at how much his life had changed. He had started that investigation thinking he was hunting criminals. He never imagined he would end up finding a family instead. Hey, Isabella, Ryan whispered as he watched Sophia rock their daughter. Want to hear the story of how your parents met? It all started at a gas station at 2 a.m. When your dad thought he was just stopping for coffee. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, and Ryan knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Their love story had started with lies and danger, but it had grown into something real and lasting. Sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected places, and sometimes helping a stranger at a gas station could change your entire world.